Hey, what's up everyone? Brad Chmielewski here with episode 182 of Shatter The Vain. This week I have idmonfish joining me to talk about what's going on in the SEA region. We got Worlds coming up there, so everyone's getting hyped about that. I know a lot of people are traveling. I've already seen people talking about their flights on Twitter, so everyone's getting excited for that. We got some great teams representing NA, and we got some other great teams playing from the other regions there. So it's going to be awesome matches of 3 days to watch. And if you're watching them, you're going to be able to get that sweet Catherine skin as well. We dive into some of that and our opinions there. That skin looks awesome. As a Catherine fan, I cannot wait to pick up that skin. It's gonna be great. Just everything's great here, but we dive into some of the issues that SEA is having with the server troubles and how that's maybe impacting gameplay there, how the players are doing. As we're talking about SEA and Worlds being there, is it kind of I guess casting a shadow on Worlds too? So hopefully not. Hopefully they get all that sorted out. I know it's not always SCMC's problem. They are trying to fix what they can fix as well. So dive into some of that. The new hero, we have some info about that. We talk about maybe some of her abilities, what she's going to look like, and how maybe she's going to impact 5v5. I really cannot wait to see 5v5 get played at Worlds. I'm excited to see what the map looks like, how the gameplay is going to work out, and how the teams are going to adapt to, one, having more people on the fold. I guess it might not be called the Halcyon Fold anymore, but more people on the map, just more synergy. It's going to take a while for some of these teams to start, working together as well as they have in 3v3. Before we get into this episode, I want to mention the Patreon page. That's over at patreon.com/shatterthevain. If you can support the show in any way, that would be awesome. Very much appreciate it. But I love everyone that's been listening and watching over the years. I mentioned episode 1 last week because it got released the day before Thanksgiving 3 years ago. So now we've passed the 3-year mark of the podcast. So that's pretty awesome. So if you've been listening since episode 1, thank you. And if you're a new listener, if you just started listening to the podcast, welcome and thank you also. All right, let's do it. Let's jump into this week's episode.
Shatter the Vain.
This is the 182nd episode of Shatter the Vain. My name is Brad Chmielewski, and this is a podcast all about Vainglory. Every week, breaking down the news, gameplay, game tips, and hopefully we can become better players together. And every week, bringing on people from the community, people that love this game, have been playing it for a long time and supporting it. And this week, I have idmonfish joining me. Welcome.
Thanks.
And I got the IGN right there now.
You did get the IGN right there now.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Thanks for taking time to join me. Do you want to introduce yourself? Let people kind of know who you are if they haven't seen you in Discords and Twitch chats and things like that.
Sure. So I'm a player primarily in SEA, although I also play on NA. I am a forum moderator for the official forums. I'm a member of the core testing group in the PBE, and I'm currently coach and analyst for Renegades, which is an SEA-based pro team.
Oh, right. That's Renegades is it Monte Cristo's team?
I believe it was owned by Monte Cristo, although I think he sold it to somebody else, and it's currently being run by somebody else. But yeah.
Okay, nice. So you have your hands in many different places in Vainglory, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Before we dive into some of that, like what got you into Vainglory? How'd you find out about it and start playing? Were you in the early beta days of it?
I did try it in the early beta days, and I decided it wasn't that good, so I quit. So at the time, I was playing another MOBA on mobile, Fates Forever, which had some similarities insofar as it was a touch-based MOBA rather than a joystick-based MOBA. but I preferred Fates Forever at the time because the skill shots involved drawing on the screen in various different ways to use your abilities.
Oh,
so you
neat.
could so take Sky's ult, for example. Their equivalent of that, you would just draw you'd press the alt button, then you'd draw where you wanted the line of fire to go, which was just really fun.
Yeah.
But it was only it was a 2-lane MOBA. And to be honest, now looking back at it, there's an awful lot more strategic depth in Vainglory than there was in Fates Forever. But at the time, I didn't know any better. So I tried Vainglory. I went, this just feels very slow, and I can't do skill shots in the way I used to do skill shots. It's terrible. So I went back to Fates Forever, and then Fates Forever shut down, and ultimately actually became Discord, because the voice chat system and the general discussion system of Discord is actually the Fates Forever voice chat system. They took it out of that and made it into Discord. And so I moved to Vainglory because I didn't have anything better to do. And then found that actually it was quite fun.
Well, yeah, I would think in the early beta days, at the time Fates Forever was around, there was 12, maybe not even 12 heroes at that point. So you didn't really have any options. If you didn't like one of those people, you were kind of screwed.
Yeah. I think it was a combination of that, and also that the pace, at least before you buy boots of Vainglory, the movement speed of the heroes was a lot slower than the movement speed of the Fates Forever heroes, so it just felt slow-paced. It wasn't. It took the same amount of time to play, but the feeling was slow.
Yeah, that's going to be a feeling they're going to hopefully address as they move into 5v5. Like you said, Fates was a 2-lane map, Vainglory being a 1-lane map. You could move a little slower because you have less distance to travel, but when you have 2 lanes, you need to move a little faster, or 3 lanes to that degree. Yep. Cool. So then, did you find yourself going to the forums and just being involved there? Is that why you became a moderator?
Yeah.
You were just extremely active?
Basically, I was quite active in the Fates Forever forums, and so it was just a natural progression to move to the Vainglory forums and be active there. And I'm interested in theory crafting. I'm interested in thinking about how the game works and how the structure of the game works, and so on. And I'm very happy to talk about things. So yeah, it was a kind of natural place to be.
Do you feel like the forums are still a very active place for the community, or is it kind of more on the Discord side now?
There's swings and roundabouts. So, the forums there's always people leaving, there's always people coming, there's always new dramas. They're often the same as the old dramas. There's the kind of, and you do like there are kind of forum members who are very, very jaded, because you do get the same questions coming from different people. There's always somebody who thinks Cruel has to be nerfed because he's terribly broken. And so and if you're just going, no, he's not terribly broken, you just don't know how to play against him. And so I find it's kind of always a somewhat vibrant place. It can be quite a fun place. There's quite a lot of people there who've been there for quite a long time, so there's quite a lot of running in jokes and so on. But yeah, no, it's always interesting, but it always comes and goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like that has to be the place people kind of land, if the first place they go when they're looking for information or to complain or just find out more info. It's go to the Vainglory website and there's a button there for the forum, so it makes sense that new people are always coming in and finding it.
Yes, and having their posts moved to the salt mine.
That's pretty exciting. So then you've seen, like we were saying, you've been with this for a long time, so you've seen people come and go. I know we often reminisce in some of the Discord chats about players that have come and streams that have gone. So it's got to be pretty exciting, I guess, and sad to some degree to see the game changing over 3 years now that you've been with it.
Sure. And it's worth noting as well, a lot of those old voices and old people are still around in some way, shape, or form. So I found a lot of the old forumers have kind of congregated in various Discords. So even if they're not very engaged with the game anymore, they're still there, and they'll still kind of pop up and chat about things and so on. So yeah, it is, but there is this sense of kind of ongoing change.
Yeah, that's cool. So then now this Renegades thing. So is this you said you were kind of a coach analyst, or is it still kind of forming? I'd love to hear a little more about that, how that's working out or coming to be.
Okay, well, no, I mean, I'm the coach and analyst, although we have quite a large analyst team. So there's 4 of us currently. So we formed as a team out of two teams in Southeast Asia. So the infamous Legion, who have been extremely dominant for a long time in Southeast Asia. So they traditionally were always the team that was winning, and we continued that the last couple of seasons. We've been top of the table in terms of points.
Okay.
And Popeyes, who were a new team who formed in, I think, the spring season, but had managed to work their way up to third in the table. So they'd been very, very strong as a team. And we decided that, well, effectively the infamous Legion's jungler, he has compulsory military service, so he wasn't able to play, particularly on Saturdays, because that happened to be when the compulsory military service fell.
Okay.
So we needed to have somebody else in jungle, and looking at the way Vainglory is going, and that 5v5 looked like it was coming around the corner and wouldn't be too far off. And our players and their players, so I was part of Infamous Legion's coaching team back then, knew each other quite well. We talked to them about merging, and they agreed to merge.
Okay.
So we ended up kind of mashing the two things together, and we didn't really get rid of anybody, so we took their analyst team and our analyst team, and it just became a stupidly large analyst team.
Well, yeah, it makes, like you said, having those people on hand when 5v5 gets released could be a big benefit for you.
Yeah, so we've got 6 players. We've kind of got an idea about what we want to do and how we want to do it. Mm-hmm. And because it's 2 teams, we've got quite diverse sets of players as well. So there's kind of people who will fit in multiple roles. And something which has always been the case, particularly with Infamous Legion, is that most of our players are very flexible. So they'll play any role depending on which hero's been played and play it very, very well. So one of the things that we very commonly did was have Uni and Spaghetti swap between being lane or jungle depending on which heroes we were drafting.
Oh, nice. Okay. And that I think is really nice, and something maybe NA teams don't do, because it throws off when you're scouting, when you're looking, when you're doing your research for the team you're going to play against. You never know who's going to be in that role and switch and come in and those subs, so you have to prepare for a lot more when you do have that larger roster.
Yeah, and it also expands your hero pool in terms of what your effective draft is, which makes it very, very hard to counter you. Because if they draft against Spaghetti in lane, fine, we'll put Uni in lane.
Yeah,
that's not a problem. So yeah, it's works out reasonably well.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. Excited to see where it goes and moving into 5v5 for you.
Well, I mean, the very fun thing for us for the 5v5 is that Renegades will be the team, or one of the teams, that's playing the show match at Worlds.
Right.
So that's basically what we're focusing on at the moment, is preparing for that.
Yeah, I guess that kind of leads us into the news this week, because there's a lot of stuff, I guess, you being in the SEA region would love to touch on and dive into a little bit there. So,
Vainglory News.
I think the first thing is this show match might be interesting to talk about, since you brought that up. So yeah, we have Renegades and what's the other team playing? There hasn't been announced. Is it Echo Fuck?
At this point, it's not been announced.
Okay.
We don't know.
Okay.
So it could be anybody. We're quite excited to find out who it is. We don't know if it. I mean, so I think the options are it'll either be a pro team from somewhere. It could be an NA team, could be EU, could be China, South America. Who knows? We don't know. Or it could be a dev team. That's the other, I think, strong possibility. You know, they've got the experience. They've had 5v5 a lot longer than anybody else has. So it could be them. And in a way, there'd be something quite nice if it was some of the original devs who started with the playtesting in Southeast Asia back when Vainglory was in its infancy, before it was even Vainglory.
Yeah.
It'd be a kind of nice kind of coming home if they ended up playing against an SEA team to introduce the kind of new mode.
But it'd be nice, even bragging rights, to be like, if it was a NA team, to be like, oh yeah, we beat, or whichever way it goes, we won the first 5v5 match there was. These two teams play, and it kind of creates a good story moving forward, I think, if it wasn't the dev team. So
Absolutely.
So that match is going to happen. It'll probably be the last. I don't know the day.
It will be the last day.
Yeah,
of
the
Worlds.
last day probably.
I believe it's scheduled to be between the sort of semi-finals and the final.
Right.
So it's the space that gives the players who played in the semi-finals a bit of a break before they hit the finals.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be, I think, the most exciting day to watch. Although all the teams playing, it's going to be like 3 days of intense matches throughout. So I know last time it was
it's going to be really fun.
And you're going to be attending if your team is playing, right? So you'll be there.
Exactly. Yes, I am going to be attending, which is amazing. It should be really, really interesting. I'm really looking forward to even some of the matchups that you might not think of as the really exciting matchups. I'm still really interested in. So like I'm really interested in how Elite Eight go. Not against Cloud9. I'm sure SEA Pride and so on and so forth. But to be honest, there's very unlikely that I think the SEA teams are going to do well against somebody like Cloud9. But the South American team, Canads, well, that's really interesting. Because I think their levels are fairly similar. It's really hard to know which one's stronger because it's regions that I don't think have ever met each other.
Right. Yeah. And so you're probably getting a chance to watch more of these teams play just because. You have to, one, keep an eye on them for the analyst role, but then also you're in the region, the SEA region, so you get to see some of the matches happening over there.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe the NA people just are asleep or just totally miss out on.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Although in the streams you do see some of the NA people pop up every so often, in the chats and so on. But yeah, no, I think that's right. I got a better feel for how strong or weak the SEA teams are, relatively speaking. As a region, it's been dominated by two teams. So Renegades have managed to lead the table. Impunity have been very competitive. So it tends to, like, if you watch it, the weekly kind of pattern is if Renegades and Impunity don't meet on the way to the final, they meet in the final.
Okay.
We're kind of fighting it out, and it's good fun, and we get on well with the guys from Impunity. They're a Singapore-based team, so in a way they're the home team. For Worlds. But yeah, and they're players that. So if you look at the kind of history of it, half of the players were players who were at Worlds last time as Infamous Legion. They then split off and created Impunity. Now Infamous Legion kind of came back. Now Infamous Legion's become Renegades, but that kind of internal rivalry is still there a bit.
Right, okay. So I guess you were talking about Cloud9 and how you think they're pretty strong. Any predictions for it going in on who you might see in the finals or even taking it all?
It's really tough, actually. I was convinced that Ace was going to take it all up until the point that Skoza quit. So once he quit, once Scarshield quit, that really opened things up because we play quite a lot of scrims against EA teams, so we've got a fair feel for their strength. And Ace are on another level. I mean, they just, they really, they're just their teamwork and rotations, and it's beautiful to watch. Particularly if they get to draft one of their siege comps, and the meta is kind to siege comps. Yeah, they're just incredibly hard to hold out against. But I don't know what they're going to look like now that they don't have the Roma that they've been playing with for so long, because obviously he's going to have been a core part of that rotation. He was part of what made it work. And maybe their new Roma will be in the right kind of pattern that'll work with them, but maybe they won't.
Right, yeah, okay.
And then Armada, again, it's really hard to pick because although they are historically a really strong team, Ace were dominating them even when Druid was well. Then Druid's been unwell. He's going to be at Worlds, we're told, but we don't know if he's better or not. And so we don't really know who they can end up fielding. Okay. And then you have the NA teams who have definitely come on, definitely stronger. Cloud9 are very impressive in terms of just the raw, brutal mechanical skill. I I do have my concerns a little bit about the hero pool and in terms of the draft. Although I mean, Physics is an amazing drafter, I do think particularly in lane they are potentially exposable. I think.
For sure.
And TSM, again, amazing team, fantastic at drafting. I think they're one of the better drafters out there, and perhaps not quite to the same mechanical level as C9, but you kind of feel like tactically they're almost slightly better than them, which makes it a really interesting matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, my inclination is to think that the top 4 teams, are going to be those 4 teams.
Okay.
But picking which one out of them is going to take it, no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be exciting. We're 2 weeks away from the kickoff here. I think on the 14th. So yeah, it's coming up fast.
It really is. Yeah.
And then we got some news, like if you're gonna be watching the championships, you can get this new Catherine skin for free. This is an awesome idea by Super Evil Megacorp, and even a better skin. Like, this skin sets it up for what we should see for like the winners of the worlds. They should get a skin in the game that's kind of has some of their traits or something like that. But this Catherine,
kind of reference to it.
Yeah, because this Catherine skin is all Vainglory, just like Vainglory pride here, and it's pretty amazing skin. If you haven't seen it, there's a link in the show notes. Goes to the page, and there's video, and you get like a bubble with the Vainglory logo on it when she throws down her ultimate, leaves confetti and Vainglory logo there. The foam finger, though, might be my favorite.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And there's details on their website how to get it for free. All you have to do is really click through within the app. You need to watch the game or watch the worlds for, I think, 30 minutes. I think it has like some sort of timer or way it's checking this. So if you don't even watch esports, you can click through and just have it going and, go do something else if you want. If you don't really want to watch it, if you just want a free skin, it's easy to get.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And if you're there at Worlds, you'll get it as part of the door package on the last day, I'm told. So nice. you don't have to be a case that you're sitting there at Worlds.
You have to sit there in the audience. All right, that's smart, yeah. I think this is a great way to, just support the community and also bump those numbers up a little bit. I know it's going to be an off time for a lot of NA people who are going to be watching it, so it's going to be tricky there. For a lot of people in NA to be watching it, but this is a way to make sure people get in there, log some numbers to show that the viewership is doing well too. So it's a little sneaky, but smart.
I'm actually going to be really interested to see what the viewing numbers are, because the population in SEA who's into Vainglory is pretty big. Mm-hmm. And you get, Skoga, which is a Singaporean-based sort of, I believe they're a kind of government enterprise to try and encourage esports, which, just saying those words is crazy, but that's the kind of world that we're in. They had a Singapore-only based tournament about a month ago, I think called the Lion City Cup, and I was watching the stream on Twitch for that, and they had 2,500 viewers.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that's Singapore only.
Yeah.
Tournament still can draw those kinds of numbers.
Yeah, those are just Vainglory 8 numbers. Yeah.
Exactly. So it could actually be really interesting, and particularly, like I know in Indonesia there's a huge amount of support for Elite 8. They've got a massive following there.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So it's going to be really interesting to see what the numbers actually are like.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna try to adjust my schedule that weekend and make sure I can tune in a bit. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's the holidays, so it involves like always a lot of staying up and drinking around this time of year too. So get all messed up there. That's cool. Then speaking of SEA, there's been even more server trouble. I know we were talking a little bit on Twitter about this. So recently, basically, it sounded like since this new update dropped, about 2-3 weeks ago, there's been just issues, unplayable for a lot of people with lag spikes, black screens, just huge pain points this time. Have you run into this playing there at all?
So actually, myself hasn't been hugely affected.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not historically, it's not an uncommon thing with the SEA server when there's a new patch that things start to go odd. And I think part of that is just because whenever a new patch drops, you get a huge spike in players,
Right.
and that puts pressure on the server. And this one, I think, was unfortunately compounded with various programming issues. So the black screen, for example, wasn't really a server-side problem. I think that was a problem with a very rare bug that didn't get caught in PBE but made it out to live.
Okay.
And when you have a rare bug, it doesn't pop up enough to get caught in PBE. But because there's so many people playing, it pops up an awful lot.
Sure. Okay.
On live.
And
yeah, the SEA server has often had struggles. It's I think a part of just the sheer size of the server, because it stretches for an ungodly amount of space. I have people on my friends list who live in Russia. I've got one guildmate who swears he's in Madagascar, although I'm not 100% sure I believe him. I've got, I play with people in New Zealand. I play with people in India, Singapore. It stretches for a really, really, really long distance. And it's not just, that there's that distance. It's that the connections and the way that the data travels makes a huge difference to what ping you end up with. So I, on my home connection at the moment, which I recently switched to a faster connection, I now have a ping of around 200 to 250 in SEA. I've got a ping of 160 in NA.
Okay.
From my home connection, right? So that's routing. That's the problem there. But if I switch to my cellular connection, I drop down to about 100, 120 in SEA. If I come to work and if I play here, which I'm sure never happens.
No,
No, of course, it drops down to 80.
Okay.
So that's routing. That's the ISPs. It's not something which Vainglory itself can really control. Because it's a matter of international agreements between internet service providers about how data is going to travel. That impact on it.
Okay, and you always hear problems with especially internet issues in India, and if they're playing, you just run into stuff, especially as new places are getting online and more people are playing these games. So it's gonna strain the system a little bit in some of these parts.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the other thing is that physically, those cables that connect the countries that actually carry the internet can get damaged. They can get destroyed. They can, in one case, get attacked by sharks.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
It's like the most Australian way that you could lose your internet connection.
Yeah, sharks again. The internet's down.
Attacked the cables.
Yikes. But I guess it's just a huge bummer. One, that this has been an issue with SEA for so long, and two, that Worlds are coming here, so the attention is in the SEA region, I think, right now for Vainglory, and then there's server problems.
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, and nobody enjoys it, nobody wants it, and there's a lot of salt that gets generated because of it. Sometimes, unfairly, because it is the guy. So as one of the kind of core testers, I'm in touch with people like the server team. I know they're up at 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning trying to get things to not bloody break. So it's not like they're not doing their best to do stuff. And often they are blamed for stuff that isn't in any way under their control.
Right.
They can't help it if there's a typhoon in Hong Kong and it breaks all of the connections between Australia and Singapore. There's not much they can do about that.
Mm-hmm. But if you are a player there, they usually try to do things like extra glory or double glory weekends, just things to kind of, I guess, make you feel a little less bad that you haven't been able to play.
Indicate that they care and that they get it, which they do.
Yeah. Do you think the players, are the professional players playing there, are they playing with this ping? Or are they going to have, is it going to be just a crazy difference going to a live stage where it's like a local connection, and then that with no ping going from something that's like 120, 200 at times. It's got to throw them off, I think.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? It's too easy. So it's going to depend on where the pro players are coming from. So, like, if you look at the kind of concentration of pro players in Southeast Asia, you'll notice that an awful lot of them are Singapore-based or in countries that are right next door to Singapore.
Okay.
And that's Singapore's where the server is. It's not surprising. They have lower ping. It is easier to play.
Okay.
When I went to North America earlier this year and when I visited the lair and had 15 ping, I could play Taka. I haven't been able to play Taka before because I always get caught out. Turns out it wasn't just that I'm reasonably crap at Taka. It's that, actually those tiny little millisecond differences make a difference.
Yeah.
Although the other thing that's kind of interesting is that there's a number of pro roamers who come from Australia. For some reason, it seems like our pro players get channeled into Rome because they have to deal. They're used to dealing with the ping, and I guess the mechanics aren't quite as important.
For sure, you just have to have your timing, and as long as you get that fountain off in time, you're okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess it's good to hear that this isn't like an issue, I guess, that everyone is running into. I agree that it's kind of just sometimes, and maybe you hear about those voices. You hear about the problems louder than you hear about the people that are playing, with no problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, like you said, Vainglory and the team is always working on stuff. One of the things that recently went out was a bug fix to the turrets. They didn't actually say what this fixed, but I believe it was a problem where the turrets would target someone, they'd get out of range and continue to target them but not fire. So you could kind of sit out of range and the turret wouldn't go off. I believe this got fixed.
Yeah, and I think that's the correct way to put it, is we believe it's been fixed. So, you might have noticed if you looked at it carefully, they said, we fixed the known issues with turret targeting.
Yeah.
Very careful wording, because there have actually been a lot of issues with turret targeting. And in a way, having the target indicator, which was a relatively new addition, that exposed a lot of those issues that have probably been there for a really long time.
That's right,
And having seen a lot of these different bugs, some of them were really weird. I saw one where this guy had left the turret, he had gotten down to the jungle shop, it was still firing at him.
Oh, wow, okay, I haven't seen it.
Stop it firing at him, it just chased him, effectively. It just kept going until he died. It was hilarious to watch, because he ran through the shop, he bought a reflex block to block the next shot, and then kept trying to
Oh my gosh. It's like, try to port home as quickly as you can. So at least they're always working on these bugs. Stuff comes up as the code gets bigger and bigger. There's always more problems, and they have to address them. And like you were saying, some of that stuff's not caught in PBE. Once you have players testing, an hour of player testing, just like you see so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's orders of magnitude more play gets done.
Yeah.
Outside of the PBE.
So, but that's fixed, and so the World is playing on the current patch, but then the next patch is going to launch here in, I believe, just about 2 weeks, because the season's coming to an end. So we always get the patch right here at the season end. And we got some teases for the new hero, which we got the video of her basically killing Lyra with a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
It isn't said who this hero is yet, but it could be the Storm Queen. She kind of is wearing like a similar hat or helmet as that, but I don't think it's exactly the Storm Queen.
Well, there is a name, because there's a name on the YouTube video.
Oh,
so whenever they do these spoiler releases, they always name the YouTube videos the name of the hero.
Oh, they do.
So we know her name is Varia. We don't know anything else. So yeah, we don't know. Could it be the Storm Queen? Maybe not. I've seen a lot of speculation on the forums and on Twitter that there's a connection to Ambrosis, which is the living spellbook that Lyra has.
Okay.
So possibly possibly Lyra stole the spellbook or something like that, and it might be Varia's spellbook. That's I've seen speculation. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the lore on this one because the lore is always amazing.
Right, and when she so we know one of her abilities is probably some sort of lightning bolt that can either travel across the map or super long target range, like a Baron, like a CP Baron ultimate or something like that. That seems like the only ability we kind of know that she has. But some sort of lightning stuff, which
some kind of lightning stuff, and yeah, you're right. From that video, it looks like she throws a fairly long distance bolt.
Which would, I think, be great as we move into 5v5. The map's going to be bigger, so those ultimates, those global ultimates become more useful, and they don't seem like just stuff's flying all over the place like they would on a 3v3 map where, you have ultimates going across the map. It's kind of annoying on that tiny map, but a big map, much little better.
Yeah, and you're going to see some really interesting interactions in that regard. You'll see things like Celeste firing her ult up the lane to impact on top lane or bottom if she's in mid. You'll see Baron, launching his ult from far away. Kestrel, sniping people across crazy distances.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of kind of quite fun interactions with some of those longer range abilities that you just don't really have the kind of feel for at the moment. Because at the moment, really, it's usually like 90% of Celeste ults are just down the lane.
Yeah.
Because they're easy to there.
Yeah, and easy to hit.
Easy to hit. Yeah. There's going to be some really skillful shots, I suspect, where you're just going, how on earth did they predict that?
Right. But yeah, this new hero. We should see more info this week. We usually get, that first lore the week and a half before the release. So yeah, keep an eye out on Vainglory's Twitter. They'll start showing new stuff here. They're hyping Worlds. They're hyping the next patch. So yeah, get ready for all of that. That's going to do it for the news. I did find this interesting topic on the forums. So let's dive into that.
Forum static.
So on the forums, there's been a lot of talk about CP Gwen and CP Baron. They seem to be all the rage right now in solo queue. And we're seeing a lot of CP Gwen right there at the end of the challenged battles with the Vainglory 8 and everything. So she was kind of making herself known there to everyone who was watching. Have you seen these two, build paths, and have you played either one of them?
Yeah, I've seen them. They were tested fairly extensively in PPE before the build was released. Knew they were going to be strong, although quite situational. So the Baron pick, it's a great pick as a last pick on Seaside into particular comps, but it's quite a weak opening. So if you're on A side and you draft Baron first, you ought to be in a world of hurt because there's a lot of potential counters out there that can really make him suffer. But yeah, if your opponents have drafted Saw and you're sure they're going weapon power and there are a bunch of relatively slow moving heroes, then man, CP Baron hurts anything.
I had just played a game with CP Baron against him before recording this, and I was a Vox, but the amount of porcupine mortars that were coming out was just like, I can't even get by you, like over there, like it's nuts.
Yeah, Vox does suffer into him because of the short range as well. You've literally got to go through the wall of horrible pain, and it's just not doable. CP Gwen's really interesting. It's quite. I think in many ways she's stronger than CP Baron is. She's always been reasonably good. Yeah. What's held her back before is that she took too long to scale up, and she was so weak in the early game that you just basically push her out of lane and you'd win that way. Whereas now she's scaling a lot faster, and she's pretty brutal. Again, into particular heroes. Vox really struggles into her, I've found. because she can just keep back and poke.
Right.
And he can never get close enough. And if he does get close enough, then as long as she's got somebody who's got a good engage on her team, Vox doesn't want to go in and get close. But again, there's counterplay available. You can deal with her with divers. That tends to work. She's good against mages, but a mage played well can do better than her. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit of skill matchup. And she does, the problem that Gwen always has is she has such a tiny health pool that she is pretty easy to chunk.
Yeah, assassin against a Taka or something, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
But you do need to play both of these, Baron and Gwen, just like you would someone like Scarf or Celeste, where you're in the back line just throwing out stuff, throwing out Heliogenesis, Spitfire, it's keeping your distance. But so what made them so strong this patch? Was it the new CP items, or was it just like the evolution of the picks that we've been seeing?
So I mean, both. If I recall rightly, I have to admit I can't quite remember this with Gwen, but Baron got kind of a couple of buffs to the CP path, although one wasn't a buff. One was a bug fix that people took as a buff. So in the previous patch, his Porcupine Mortars, for no apparent reason, suddenly their cooldown went up. And I say for no apparent reason because it wasn't a change that we tested or anything like that. It was literally something which went live, and then somebody went, hang on. Isn't he going a bit long? Isn't it taking him longer to do these than normal?
Sure.
And it was. So that was just really reverting to what was previously the case. But I think he also got a small nudge to the CP ratio as well. So it was a kind of double whammy.
Okay.
And then the new items fit really well with their kits. I mean, Clockwork in particular is a monster of an item, and works well with both of them. So you get a huge amount of cooldown from it. You're getting to do an awful lot of damage, and it's great. It's a great synergy, basically.
I don't. They're fun to play. If you haven't played them, you've probably played against them, but you should give them a try if you haven't checked them out in a while. Especially if you're so used to playing weapon power, you do have to play it differently, so it takes a little getting used to.
I mean, the other big difference is that So what had happened? So if you look, last patch, CP heroes weren't that great. And they weren't that great because of the health changes. And the reason they weren't that great because of the health changes is that it took longer to kill somebody. Mm-hmm. And the amount of energy that CP heroes had, because that's the obvious way of kind of controlling the power of CP heroes, was tuned for the old level of defense and health. So what would happen if you tried to play CP Baron or CP Gwen or Celeste or whatever was, unless you were really good at managing your energy, about 3/4 of the way through the fight, your opponent would still be alive, and you'd be out of energy.
Right. That's basically me. I can't manage them.
Yeah. So the change to energy items this patch has made the energy management so much more forgiving. It's still not quite the case that you just, fire whatever you want and that's fine. You still actually have to manage it a bit. But it is a lot more forgiving than it was in the previous patch, which has brought the CP heroes up.
Yeah, you don't need multiple batteries or anything like that. You can kind of get away with one regen item or your boots and a regen item. So
yeah, and that does open up different build paths. So you used to be kind of forced into Halcyon Charges as a CP hero. You're not so forced now. You can try the other paths, and sometimes they can be quite effective.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, check out this topic on the forums. Anyone's looking, they're not, I think, OP. Like I said, they are strong into the right comp. If you play against them for the first time, you may seem like this is ridiculous, but yeah, you can counter it. So just gotta find the ways to do it. Well, that's gonna do it for episode 182. Thanks for joining me. This was great.
A pleasure.
It's nice to hear what's happening, I guess, on the other side of the world. I usually am focused on NA here and what's happening here in the scene and the community, so nice to hear some voices from elsewhere.
Absolutely.
where's the best place for people to either, if they want to reach out to you, is on the forums, Twitter, or how can they get in touch?
Yes. So the forums is a great place to get me. I'll always be there. Twitter, I'm active there as well. Discord, I'm active there. So really, just look out for me. I'm always called idmonfish. And yeah, it's easy enough.
Cool. Yeah, I'll include a link in the show notes and the description, so everyone, go over there, follow. If you have any questions, I'm sure you'd be more than happy to answer them.
Always.
Cool. And then Shatter the Vain's on Twitter at Shatter the Vain, website shatterthevain.com. All the episodes get posted there, links to iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube version as well. And I'll be back with episode 183 next week as we learn more about the new hero, get even more hype for Worlds, and yeah, patch is coming, so get ready. All right, take care.
Let's get this over with.